guys, it's Sam, and these are my 2023 book awards and superlatives. This is something I've done the last handful of years. This is a combination of Kayla of Bookadoodles, previously Bookadoodles, I don't think her channel's up anymore, had a book awards. Mara from Books Like Whoa does superlatives, and then I added a few of my own. It's a way for me to continue to talk about some of my favorites, but mostly I was trying here to talk about things that I hadn't talked about. Mostly. Number 1, favorite male protagonist. I mentioned this in last year's superlatives, and I've still kept this question in here, but like generally speaking, I'm not reading about men. And if I am, they are part of an ensemble cast, and they do not tend to stand out to me. So I don't know if I've read a single like actual protagonist that's male in which there's a single POV at all this year, at all in the last like 2 years. I read so few books that have a male POV, a single male POV. I think the one that I picked is like maybe the only one that I read this year that actually just had like one POV that was male. So Jamie in the Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. This is one of those books that's like an almost favorite because like I did not remember his name until I just looked at it. But getting to live Jamie's experience of going to an alternate Earth and taking care of kaiju, that was very fun. Do I necessarily like him as a character? No, he's kind of a self-insert, whatever. But like, again, one of the only books about a man that I read all year. And kaiju. Like, this was not a great book by any means. It was like a nice solid 3.5 for me. But do I think about it a lot? Yeah. Because I like a kaiju, and Pacific Rim is one of the best movies ever made. So it stuck with me. Favorite female protagonist. I have a few of these, and it's funny because 2 of these are almost repeats from last year. I will tell you what I mean. First, Amina El-Sarafi. This is a S.A. Chakraborty book. One of my favorite female protagonists from last year was from an S.A. Chakraborty book. This is a murder mommy, fully adult woman who is a pirate, who has made a lot of mistakes, who's really good at being a pirate, but also fucks up a lot. I love her. The other character that I also mentioned last year as one of my favorite female protagonists is Kate Daniels. I did not read many Kate Daniels books last year. I think I only read 1, maybe 2. Kate Daniels just speaks to my Buffy-loving heart. And lastly is Mara from Nettle and Bone. Really a lot of the characters in Nettle and Bone, but since we're talking protagonists, Mara, unstoppable, quiet strength. I love her. Best book cover, I think, Belladonna by Ellen Grace. These are so pretty. They're so pretty. And like, look at the inner pages and how creepy. Like, it's just so nice. Oh, and like, yeah, I must have had like a special edition maybe. Oh, she's so pretty. Yeah, obsessed. Best friendship. I have 2 different answers for this. The Cleric She and Almost Brilliant, who is a bird, a talking bird from the Singing Hill Cycle by Nevo. They are like paired together to go on quests to find stories. And they're so sweet. You don't even get that much like from them usually, but you can just tell by the way they talk to each other, like how cute and wonderful their little friendship is. Also, The Friends and Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is a friendship book. This is a romance book, but it's also a friendship book. I care deeply about all the friends. This is a group of friends that have been going to the same lake house for like years together since college. They're now fully adults, and like all of the intersections and additions of partners and things like, and the different dynamics and how like they triangulate and all of this stuff. This was like such a realistic friend group to read about, and I cared about them deeply. Most unique world. Locklands by Robert Jackson Bennett. I've talked about it before, but nothing really can top for me this, like, the ways in which he made tech into fantasy magic. Like, computer tech, programming into fantasy magic. It's so good. Most unique plot? Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. This has alternate timeline stuff and, like, time jumping and things. So having characters get to see how relationships would change, how like the world would change from like one decision and the broad impacts of that, and also having the knowledge of that in their brain. Very interesting. Kept me on my toes the entire time. Best writing, Thistlefoot by Jenna Rose Nethercott, because that's why it's my favorite book of the year. This combined the history and folklore and like Jewish history, specifically in folklore and mythology, with sibling dynamics, different kinds of magic, the impacts of like xenophobia and generational trauma, also little like one-off lines about things, the relationship with the sentient house, like the POV chapters from the sentient house, like so much. It is in the same vein of writing as like a Erin Morgenstern for me. So good. Then we have most correctly hyped, most overhyped, and most underhyped. For most correctly hyped, the Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. People talked really highly of this, and I doubted it, and they were correct. Correct level of hype for how many people were talking about this when this came out. Most underhyped, The Last Watch by J.S. Dews. This is a adult sci-fi that's following characters who are essentially on the edge of the universe, and then things start happening and the universe starts collapsing, and they're sort of having to figure out, why is that happening? Why is their government not doing anything about it, or just kind of abandon them? And these are mostly people who are like disgraced former military heroes. There's some very cool relationship dynamic stuff. It's all just like very fast paced though, and very fun. And it's going to be like a 3-book series. The second book is already out. This is so good for sci-fi though. I've heard some of the big sci-fi fans talk about this, but like this is pretty easily accessible for most people. There are moments when some of the like sci-fi language gets a little bit much for me, but you're not missing anything if you just kind of like gloss over that a little bit. This was very fun, and I think more people should read it. Most overhyped, Fourth Wing. Obviously. Favorite new to me author, T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher. I think a lot of people started T. Kingfisher this year if they didn't start reading her in 2022. I read 2 books, novel and novella, by her, and now I want to read like a lot, and she churns out books too, so I'm like, I have other goals, but I'm also like, I want to read all the T. Kingfisher books. She's coming out with at least 1, if not 2 books this next year, and there's also just like a huge backlist of books. I want to read all of them. Favorite trope from this year? I would say sentient houses. You know how I feel about sentient forests, and I've liked sentient forests for a while, but this year I feel like I read more sentient houses and really enjoyed myself. Starling House is a sentient house. Thistlefoot is a sentient house. Even just a house that maybe isn't sentient, but is so atmospheric in its place. Like I read Hare House, not a book that I particularly loved, but like the house setting was very like influential. So yeah, anything sentient places, I think, are a thing that I will continue to love. But yeah, I mean, that's why Thistlefoot was so great for me, because we got POV chapters from the house. Yeah, I love a sentient house this year. And finally, biggest surprise, Seasonal Fears by Shauna Maguire. This almost made the favorites list. This is essentially humans made into the personifications of, in this case, seasons, but like the whole series, they're all companions. It's like different sort of constructs, like social constructs and things. This I kept putting off, but I kept not getting rid of, but I kept putting off because a lot of people said they didn't like it as much as the first book in this series, which is Middle Game. And I just wasn't sure I was really going to like it. And like Shauna Maguire had been falling in my love for a while because the Wayward Children series was kind of going downhill. I liked this. And also I read the most recent of the Wayward Children books shortly after this, and that was also good. So like both of those ended up in like the 4-star category. So surprised. I like Shauna Maguire. She had just not been hitting out of the park for me lately. And this was, even though there are parts of this where like world building wise, it's a lot of like characters who know things, explaining things to other characters, which is a writing technique I don't tend to love. But in this case, what they were explaining was interesting to me enough that I didn't mind it. And it's just kind of like weird and cool, and people being personifications of things are cool. So yeah, I end up really liking this, and now I want to read the rest of the books in the series, which I was not expecting. So yeah, that is it for all of my bookish superlatives. Comment below and answer some of these for you, or if you have any that you feel like I left out and would love to hear the answer for, definitely let me know. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.